Ava Morgan's sleek black car cut through the blizzard, its engine a roar against the silent, snow-covered road. Inside, the billionaire sat, her heart long sealed against the world, until her eyes caught a trembling figure in the storm. Lily's tiny hands shook as the snow bit into her skin, her tears freezing before they could fall. She had only spilled a glass of milk, but her stepmother's fury showed no mercy. The night wind howled like a wounded creature, tearing through the silence of the small, forgotten town. Snow fell endlessly, covering every trace of life in white despair. Beneath an old oak tree, Lily curled herself tighter, her dress thin and soaked, her lips turning blue. She was only 7. The world had already taught her that some people could be colder than winter itself. Hours earlier, the glass of milk had slipped from her trembling hands. It shattered, a sound that sliced through the kitchen air like a scream. Her stepmother Miranda didn't shout, at first. She stared at Lily with eyes that burned darker than the night outside. "You useless little thing," Miranda hissed. "Do you know how much this costs?" I'm sorry," Lily stammered, her voice trembling as she bent down to pick up the shards. But a sharp crack sounded instead, Miranda's hand striking her face. Then another, and another, until Lily fell to the floor, sobbing silently, afraid that any sound might make it worse. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories. Outside, the snow was waiting. Miranda grabbed her by the arm and dragged her through the kitchen door, shoving her into the storm. "Stay there and learn what cold feels like," she spat, slamming the door. Now, hours later, Lily could no longer feel her fingers. She whispered to the night, not even sure who she was talking to. "Mommy, it hurts." Her mother had been gone for 2 years, but sometimes Lily thought she still felt her warmth, especially when things got really bad. Her eyelids fluttered. The world blurred into streaks of white and gray. Just then, headlights cut through the storm. A black Rolls-Royce slowed to a stop on the empty road. The tinted window lowered, revealing a woman dressed in a white coat that looked untouched by the snow. Her skin glowed with the deep grace of someone who had conquered the world and paid dearly for it. Ava Morgan. She had built empires, crushed obstacles, and turned pain into power. But nothing had prepared her for the sight before her. A small girl, half buried in snow, her eyes glassy and unfocused. For a heartbeat, Ava didn't breathe. A memory flickered, a face she hadn't seen in 20 years, a voice whispering her own name from a hospital bed. Her mother's voice. "Help her," it seemed to say. Ava's driver hesitated. "Ma'am, it could be dangerous. Maybe it's—" "Stop the car," Ava interrupted, already opening the door. The wind slapped her face, biting through her perfect composure. But she didn't care. She knelt beside Lily, brushing snow from the girl's face. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly. "Can you hear me?" Lily's lips moved, a ghost of sound escaping. "Are you an angel?" The question hit Ava harder than the cold ever could. "No," she whispered. "But I'll take you somewhere warm." She wrapped her coat around the child and lifted her into her arms. Lily was light. Too light. As Ava turned back toward the car, a faint sound echoed through the storm. Crunch. Footsteps. Not hers. Not the driver's. She froze, scanning the darkness. A shadow moved near the trees. Slow. Deliberate. Watching. A flicker of fear crossed Ava's face, something she hadn't felt in years. The night held its breath. Then, just as she reached the car door, Lily stirred in her arms and whispered, voice trembling but clear. "She'll come for me." Ava looked down, startled. "Who?" Lily's eyes fluttered open for a moment. Her gaze was distant, almost empty. My stepmother. A gust of wind rose, and in it, somewhere far behind them, the echo of a woman's scream carried through the snow. The car's heater blasted warmth into the icy silence, but it could not melt the chill that clung to Ava's chest. She glanced down at the girl bundled in her white coat. So small, so still. Lily's lips trembled faintly, her breaths shallow and broken. Ava's driver, Marcus, shot her a worried glance through the rearview mirror. "Ma'am, should I head to the hospital?" Ava hesitated. Her mind moved fast, calculating, as it always did. The nearest hospital was 15 minutes away, maybe 20 in this storm. But the child didn't have 20 minutes. Ava could see it in the pale blue tinge of her skin. "Go to my house," she ordered instead. Marcus's eyes widened. "Your house, ma'am. I said drive." Ava cut him off sharply. He didn't argue again. The car roared forward, slicing through the snow. Ava's mansion stood on the edge of the city, a fortress of glass and steel, cold and immaculate, a place where no one had lived, only existed. But tonight, as she held this trembling child in her arms, the walls of that lonely empire seemed to shudder. Lily whimpered faintly, her voice so small Ava had to bend close to hear. "I didn't mean to drop it." Ava frowned. "Drop what, sweetheart?" "The milk," Lily murmured, eyes unfocused. "I was just hungry." Something inside Ava twisted, an ache she thought she had buried years ago. She remembered being 10 years old, standing in a kitchen that smelled of bleach and cigarettes. Her father had thrown her mother's favorite cup against the wall. "Useless," he'd said, to both of them. Now, decades later, she heard the same word echoing from a stranger's lips. When the car finally slid to a stop in front of her mansion, Ava didn't wait for Marcus. She carried Lily inside herself. The marble floor reflected the dim golden lights, and the echo of her heels filled the vast hall. For the first time, the house felt too big, too silent. "Get the medical kit from the West Wing," she ordered Marcus, "and heat the guest room, now." Marcus hurried off, leaving Ava alone with the child. She knelt on the plush rug and gently laid Lily down near the fireplace. The flames flickered to life, casting soft light on the girl's face. Ava peeled away the soaked rags that had once been her clothes, replacing them with a blanket she pulled from the couch. Lily stirred, her small hand gripping Ava's wrist weakly. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Ava froze. No one had said those words to her since she was a child. "I won't," she said quietly. "You're safe here." But the words felt heavy in her throat, like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. When Marcus returned, he was pale. "Ma'am, there's something outside." Ava looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" He pointed through the frosted glass door. "Footprints. They lead up the driveway and stop near the gate." Ava's heart thudded. The echo of Lily's earlier words came back. "She'll come for me." "Call security," Ava ordered. "Yes, ma'am." While Marcus made the call, Ava focused on the child. She carefully dabbed the bruises on Lily's cheek with warm cloth, her fingers trembling despite her effort to stay composed. Lily's eyes opened halfway. "You look sad," she murmured. Ava blinked, caught off guard. "What makes you say that?" "You smile with your mouth, not your eyes." For a second, Ava couldn't speak. She had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. The wind howled outside, rattling the glass. The storm was growing worse. When the doctor arrived, a private physician who owed Ava more than one favor, he took one look at Lily and frowned deeply. "She's malnourished, hypothermic, and covered in bruises. Whoever did this should be locked away." "They will be," Ava said coldly. "Just make sure she lives." Hours passed. The storm raged. At last the doctor stood and exhaled. "She'll recover, but she'll need warmth, food, and rest. And someone to talk to. She's been through something terrible." When he left, Ava sat beside the bed in silence, watching the snow swirl outside the tall windows. It was nearly dawn when Lily stirred again. Her voice was faint but clearer now. "Is this your house?" "Yes," Ava replied softly. "It's been mine for a long time. Are you rich?" Ava smiled faintly. "You could say that." Lily tilted her head. "Then why do you look so lonely?" The question struck deeper than Ava expected. She looked away, her gaze lost in the flames. "Because sometimes," she said quietly, "having everything means you've already lost what matters." Silence stretched between them. The storm softened outside, as if listening. Then Lily whispered, "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" Ava hesitated. For years, she'd built her life on distance. Business deals, charity foundations, interviews where she spoke about hope, but felt none. Yet here, in this fragile moment, the walls inside her began to crack. "I'll stay," she said. Lily's breathing slowed, evened out. Her tiny hand slipped into Ava's, and something unspoken passed between them, an invisible thread of trust. Ava leaned back, exhaustion settling into her bones. But before sleep could take her, a soft sound broke the calm. Thud. From somewhere upstairs. She froze. The house was locked. Marcus had checked every door. Then came another sound, a faint creak of a floorboard, followed by what could only be footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. Ava rose silently, her pulse hammering in her ears. She reached for the fireplace poker, gripping it tightly. Another step. Then, from the dark hallway, a voice floated through the air. Cold, female, trembling with rage. "You took her from me." Ava turned toward the sound, her breath catching. At the top of the staircase stood a woman with snow in her hair and madness in her eyes. Miranda. And in her hand, something glinted in the dim light, a shard of broken glass. For a moment, neither woman moved. The silence in the mansion felt alive, breathing, watching, waiting. Ava's knuckles whitened around the fireplace poker. Her mind, usually razor-sharp in boardrooms and negotiations, struggled to focus. All she could think about was the trembling child sleeping behind her, unaware that her nightmare had followed her here. Miranda took a step forward, her boots dripping melted snow onto the marble floor. Her eyes were wide, feral, her lips twisting in a smile that carried no warmth. "You think you can take what's mine?" she hissed. Ava's voice came out steady, though her heart pounded against her ribs. "She's a child, not a possession." "She's my husband's daughter," Miranda snapped. "And she belongs in her home." Ava took a step closer, her tone low, dangerous. "If you call that place a home, you're more delusional than I thought." Miranda's eyes flickered with something sharp. Fear, maybe. But it was buried under layers of fury. "You rich people think you can fix everything with your money. You see a poor little girl and think saving her makes you holy. But you don't know her. You don't know what she's done." Ava's brows drew together. "She's 7 years old. What could she have possibly done?" Miranda's hand tightened around the glass shard. "She ruined my life." Her voice broke on the last word. Ava blinked, confused. "Explain." Miranda's breathing turned ragged. "She's cursed. Everything fell apart after her mother died. Our finances, my marriage, everything. She spills things, breaks things, lies about everything. My husband barely looks at me anymore. Just that child, that ghost of his dead wife. You don't understand. She takes everything she touches." Ava felt a chill creep up her spine, not from the cold, but from the madness in the woman's tone. "You're sick," she said quietly. "And if you come any closer, I'll make sure you never hurt her again." Miranda laughed, the sound sharp and hollow. "You think you can protect her? You don't even know what she is." Ava lifted her chin. "She's a child in pain. That's all." Miranda's expression twisted, rage overtaking reason. Then you'll freeze with her. She lunged. Ava moved on instinct, raising the poker just in time. Metal met glass with a sharp clang. The shard flew from Miranda's hand, skittering across the marble floor. The two women struggled, crashing into a table. A vase shattered, water spilling across the ground like liquid ice. For a moment, Miranda overpowered her, grabbing Ava by the wrist and slamming her against the wall. "You don't know what that girl is," she screamed. "She talks to the dead." Ava's breath caught. "What?" Miranda's eyes blazed. "I've heard her whispering in her room, talking to her mother like she's still there. Sometimes she says things she shouldn't know. She's not normal." Ava shoved her off with a burst of strength. "She's grieving." "Grieving?" Miranda spat. "No, she's possessed by whatever took her mother." The air between them felt electric, heavy with the weight of something more than anger. Fear, grief, desperation. Then, from behind them, a small voice broke the tension. "Stop!" Both women turned. Lily stood in the doorway, barefoot, pale but awake. Her blanket trailed behind her like a fallen wing. Her eyes, soft brown yet strangely deep, were fixed on Miranda. "Please," Lily whispered, tears trembling on her lashes. "Don't fight." Miranda's face softened for just a fraction of a second. "Lily." The child shook her head. "You shouldn't have come." Something in her tone, calm, distant, almost too knowing for her age, made both women freeze. Miranda stepped forward, voice breaking. "Sweetheart, I didn't mean to." Lily raised a trembling hand. "Mommy says you're hurting inside." Miranda stopped. The color drained from her face. What did you say?" Lily blinked slowly. "She told me to forgive you." The fire crackled. Outside, the storm suddenly eased, as if the world itself had paused to listen. Ava's heart raced. "Lily, who told you that?" "My mommy," Lily said softly, her gaze far away. "She comes when I'm scared." Miranda shook her head, backing, away. No, this isn't happening. You're lying." "I'm not," Lily said simply. "She said you're not evil, just lost." Miranda's hands began to tremble. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came out. Tears, hot, sudden, unstoppable, rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. He never looked at me the way he looked at her. At your mother. And every time I saw you, I saw her." Lily took a small, hesitant step forward. "She said she forgives you too." Something inside Miranda broke. The glassiness in her eyes melted into pure human grief. She sank to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Ava lowered the poker, staring at the scene in disbelief. She didn't understand what she had just witnessed, but something in the room had changed. The cold had lifted. The shadows seemed thinner. She approached slowly, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. The child leaned into her side, exhausted but strangely calm. Miranda looked up at them through her tears. "Please, don't take her away from me." Ava hesitated. "You almost killed her." "I know," Miranda whispered, "and I'll live with that every day." She pressed a trembling hand to her heart. "But she's the only thing I have left of him. I just didn't know how to love her without hating myself." Ava looked at Lily, then back at the broken woman on the floor. A storm of emotions swirled within her, rage, pity, sorrow. She thought of her own father, of forgiveness she never gave and closure she never found. Lily looked up at her, eyes pleading. "Can she stay just for tonight?" Ava froze. That one question hit her harder than any scream or sob could. She nodded slowly. "Just tonight." Miranda began to sob again, not the violent sobs of guilt, but the quiet kind that come from years of pain breaking open. Ava led Lily back to the sofa, wrapping her in a blanket once more. As the fire warmed them, she looked up. and through the window, the first rays of dawn broke over the snow. Light spilled into the room, soft and golden. For a fleeting moment, Ava thought she saw a figure reflected in the glass. A woman with gentle eyes, smiling faintly behind Lily. When she blinked, the image was gone. But the warmth remained. Outside, the snow stopped falling, and for the first time in years, Ava Morgan whispered a prayer, not for success, not for power, but for healing. The morning light poured through the wide glass windows, washing the mansion in soft gold. The storm had passed, leaving a world blanketed in white silence. For the first time in years, Ava Morgan's home didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a sanctuary, trembling on the edge of something new. But peace was fragile. Ava sat by the fire, her coffee untouched, her eyes fixed on the sleeping child curled beneath a blanket. Lily's breathing had steadied, her cheeks now flushed with warmth, instead of frostbite. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful for the chaos that had brought her here. Across the room, Miranda sat quietly, wrists resting on her knees. She looked hollowed out, as though the night had drained the last of her rage and left behind only remorse. Marcus stood by the door, unsure whether to treat her as a criminal or a guest. Ava finally broke the silence. "The police have been informed," she said, her tone calm but cool. "They're on their way." Miranda flinched, her eyes darting to Lily. "Please, she'll be taken away, won't she?" "She needs to be protected," Ava replied firmly. "I can protect her," Miranda whispered. "I swear, I'll never touch her again." Ava's gaze hardened. "You already did." The words hung in the air like ice. Miranda's hands trembled. "You think I don't know that? Every scream, every bruise, it's carved into me now. I see her face when I close my eyes." Ava leaned back, her expression unreadable. "Then maybe that's your punishment." Miranda's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want to be this person." Ava's tone softened, just slightly. "None of us do." A clock ticked somewhere in the silence. Outside, the snow glowed under the sun, bright but blinding. Lily stirred, her small voice breaking the tension. "Miss Ava?" Ava turned immediately. "Yes, sweetheart. Are we going home?" Ava hesitated. "You are home for now." Lily's brow furrowed. "What about her?" She looked toward Miranda, who lowered her gaze. "She hurt you, Lily," Ava said gently. "You remember that, don't you?" Lily nodded slowly. "But she's sad." Ava swallowed hard. "That doesn't make it right." Lily looked down at her hands. "Mommy says everyone hurts when they forget love." The sentence landed like a quiet thunderclap. Ava's chest tightened. She rose and walked toward the window, the sunlight catching her reflection. For a moment, she didn't see the powerful billionaire everyone else saw. She saw the girl she used to be, kneeling beside her dying mother, promising she'd never let love make her weak again. Her mother's last words had been simple: "Don't become what hurt you." And yet, Ava had. She'd buried her heart beneath ambition, built walls of glass and steel to keep the world out. She'd mistaken control for strength. Now, a child she'd found in the snow was tearing those walls down without even trying. Behind her, Miranda spoke again, voice trembling. "When I married her father, I thought I could start over. But he loved his first wife too much. Even after she died, he still saw her in Lily, and I couldn't bear it." Ava turned, studying her carefully. "So you punished a child for a man's love?" Miranda nodded weakly. "And for my own hate. But when I left her outside last night, I thought she'd just cry. I never meant for her to—" Her voice broke. "When the snow started falling harder, I went back for her, but she was gone. I thought I'd lost her forever." Ava said nothing. Miranda looked at her, eyes pleading. You don't have children, do you? Ava's jaw tightened. No. Then you can't know what it's like to love something so much it scares you. Ava's voice turned sharp again. Love doesn't leave bruises. No, Miranda whispered. But fear does. The truth of that hung heavy. Before Ava could respond, Marcus entered, phone in hand. Ma'am, the police are here. Lily's small gasp broke the stillness. They're taking her away? Ava looked at the girl's wide, frightened eyes, and something in her chest cracked open. She knelt down, meeting Lily's gaze. Sometimes people have to go away for a while so they can learn to be better, she said softly. It doesn't mean they stop caring. Lily's lower lip trembled. Can I see her before she goes? Ava hesitated, then nodded. Miranda knelt before Lily, tears glistening on her cheeks. I don't deserve your kindness, Lily. But I promise. I'll find a way to be the mother you need. If they let me. Lily's small hand reached up, brushing her stepmother's tear-streaked cheek. Mommy says forgiveness is how broken things shine again. Miranda broke into sobs. Your mother was a good woman. She says you can be too, Lily whispered. Ava watched, her throat tight, as the officers entered quietly. Miranda rose slowly, her movements calm, resigned. She didn't resist when they took her hand. Before leaving, she turned to Ava. Thank you for not letting her die. Ava said nothing, but their eyes met, and in that brief glance, two broken women recognized each other's pain. When the doors closed behind Miranda, silence returned. Lily climbed into Ava's lap, curling against her chest. Will she come back? Maybe one day, Ava said softly, when she's ready. Lily looked up. Will you stay with me until then? Ava hesitated. The question hit deeper than Lily could know. She had spent her entire life running from connection, afraid that love would destroy her the way it had destroyed her mother. But now, with this fragile child leaning into her warmth, she felt something new stirring, a quiet, terrifying hope. Yes, Ava whispered. I'll stay. Lily smiled faintly and closed her eyes. Outside, the snow began to melt, drop by drop, under the light of a new morning. Ava held the child close, realizing that perhaps salvation didn't come in grand gestures or miracles. It came in moments like this, small, trembling, real. And as the warmth spread through the room, she thought she heard a faint whisper, gentle as the wind. You kept your promise. Ava turned her head toward the sound, but there was no one there. Only sunlight and the fading echo of a voice she hadn't heard in years. Her mother's voice. 2 weeks had passed since the night Ava found Lily in the snow. Winter still lingered outside the tall windows of the Morgan estate. But inside, the air had changed. The coldness that once ruled every corner of the house had softened into something warmer, something living. In the mornings, laughter now echoed faintly through the halls. It was a small, tentative sound, but to Ava, it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Lily had begun to heal. The bruises faded. The fear in her eyes melted little by little. She still woke sometimes in the middle of the night, crying for her mother, but she no longer shivered in silence. Ava would come, sit on the edge of her bed, and hold her hand until she drifted back to sleep. It wasn't something Ava was used to, comforting, touching, being needed. Her world had always been about control, not care. But with Lily, control felt irrelevant. It was a Tuesday morning when Ava found her in the garden. Lily sat on the stone steps, bundled in a pink coat that was slightly too big for her, watching her breath cloud the air. The snow around her glistened in the sunlight like scattered glass. "What are you doing out here?" Ava asked, stepping closer, her voice a blend of sternness and concern. Lily smiled, her cheeks pink. "Talking to Mommy." Ava hesitated, her breath catching. You You see her again?" Lily nodded, pointing toward a bare willow tree near the pond. "She stands right there sometimes. She doesn't talk much now. She just smiles." Ava glanced toward the tree. Of course, there was nothing there. Just snow and shadow. Yet for some reason the air felt different, charged, almost humming. Ava knelt beside her. "Lily, you know she's gone, right?" Lily turned to her, eyes wide, unafraid. Gone means different things to different people. Ava froze. That was not something a 7-year-old should say. "Who told you that?" "Mommy," Lily said simply. "She said she's where the light doesn't end." Ava looked away, her throat tightening. Sometimes, when people we love die, we imagine they're still with us. It helps us feel safe. Lily frowned thoughtfully. "But she is with us. She told me to thank you." Ava blinked. "For what? For saving me?" She said, "You saved yourself too." Something deep inside Ava shuddered. She wanted to dismiss it, to tell Lily it was just a dream, a child's mind trying to make sense of pain. But she couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after that whisper she'd heard the night Miranda was taken away. Ava stood and forced a small smile. "Come inside. It's cold." Lily nodded, and they walked back toward the house. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She sat in her study, staring at the fire. The room was filled with old photographs. Her parents, her first company, awards, a lifetime of achievements. But none of it felt real anymore. Her gaze fell on a frame she rarely touched, a picture of her mother holding her as a baby. Her mother's smile was soft, almost luminous. Ava hadn't looked at that photo in years. She picked it up, tracing the edge of the glass. "You told me not to become what hurt me," she whispered. "I tried. But I think I failed." A faint sound interrupted her, a creak from the hallway. She turned. "Lily?" No answer. Ava stood and walked to the door. The hallway was dim, moonlight spilling across the floor. At the end of the corridor, she saw a small figure standing near the window. "Lily?" The girl didn't move. Ava's heart raced as she approached, but when she reached the window, there was no one there. Only a faint warmth in the air, and something resting on the windowsill. A small snowflake, perfectly formed, not melting despite the heat from the vents. Ava stared at it, breathless. It shimmered faintly before dissolving into mist. The next morning, she asked Marcus if he'd seen anything. He shook his head. "No one's been upstairs all night, ma'am." Ava didn't press further, but unease clung to her all day. That evening, while helping Lily with her drawing, Ava noticed the child sketching something unusual. A woman made of light, standing under a willow tree. Next to her, a tall woman with dark hair held a little girl's hand. "That's you," Lily said, pointing to the dark-haired woman. "And that's your mom?" Ava asked softly. Lily nodded. "She says thank you again." Ava smiled faintly. "You really think she can see us?" Lily looked up. "She says she can see you better now, because your heart isn't hiding anymore." The words froze Ava in place. She had spent her entire adult life building armor around her heart, convinced it was the only way to survive. But somehow, this child, this fragile, fearless little girl, had found the key. That night, when Ava tucked Lily into bed, the girl yawned and whispered, "Miss Ava, are you lonely?" Ava hesitated. "I used to be." "Not anymore." Ava brushed a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "Not when you're here." Lily smiled sleepily. "Mommy says you were always meant to find me." Ava's throat tightened. "She said that?" "Mm-hmm." Lily's eyes fluttered shut. "She said you both were broken. But broken things can shine if they find each other." Ava sat beside the bed long after Lily fell asleep. Her eyes burned, but for the first time in years, the tears that came weren't from pain. They were from something gentler. Acceptance. Forgiveness. And maybe the first flicker of belief that miracles weren't just for children. When she finally stood to leave, she noticed something on the nightstand. A small white feather. Ava picked it up, her hand trembling slightly. Outside, the willow tree swayed though there was no wind. The moonlight caught the branches, making them glow faintly against the snow. And in the silence, Ava thought she heard a voice. Soft, tender, familiar. Don't be afraid to love again. She turned toward the sound, but only the empty hallway greeted her. Still, she smiled through her tears, because for the first time in her life, she believed it. 3 days later, the city awoke beneath a sky of silver clouds. The snow had melted into slush, and the air carried the scent of rain instead of frost. Yet inside Ava Morgan's mansion, the season still felt like winter. Not cold, but still. Waiting. Lily was sitting by the window, her chin resting on her hands, watching the last flakes drift from the sky. Ava approached quietly, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "You're up early again," Ava said softly, setting 1 cup beside her. Lily smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep. The house talks at night." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Talks?" "Not scary," Lily assured quickly. "It just whispers. Like it's remembering things." Ava felt a small chill, though the fireplace was warm behind them. She tried to sound casual. "What kind of things?" Lily tilted her head. "Your mom?" "My mom. Sometimes they talk about you." Ava froze. "What do they say?" "That you're scared," Lily answered matter-of-factly. "Not of monsters or storms, but of feeling too much." Ava managed a thin smile. "That's very observant." Lily shrugged. "They said it's time to stop being afraid." Ava took a slow breath, steadying herself. The child spoke with a kind of gentle certainty that unsettled her, because it wasn't delusion. There was something real in the air when she spoke, something unseen but undeniable. She changed the subject. "I've been thinking, Lily," she began carefully. "You deserve a proper home, not just a big house with too many rooms." Lily turned to her, eyes wide. "You mean, with you?" Ava nodded slowly. "If you want that." The girl threw her arms around Ava's waist, almost knocking the cocoa over. "Yes, please." Ava laughed softly, startled by the sudden warmth of the embrace. Her heart, so long numb, stirred with a quiet ache that felt almost new. But before she could speak again, Marcus appeared at the doorway, his expression uneasy. "Ma'am," he said, lowering his voice. "You'll want to see this." Ava followed him to her office, where a thin file sat on the desk, one she hadn't requested. Marcus cleared his throat. "Private investigators finally found Lily's father." Ava's stomach tightened. "Where is he?" "In the hospital," Marcus said quietly. "He's been in and out of rehab for months. Apparently, after his wife died, he fell apart. Miranda handled everything until recently." Ava's pulse quickened. "And now?" "He wants to see his daughter." The words hung heavy. Ava glanced toward the hall, where she could hear Lily humming faintly to herself. "Does he know what happened?" "Not the full story. Only that Lily's been with you." Ava turned away, conflicted. She had rescued Lily from the snow, healed her wounds, given her safety, and for the first time in years, she herself had felt something close to peace. The thought of sending the child back to someone broken terrified her, but a small voice whispered in her mind, "This isn't about possession. It's about what's right." That night, Ava couldn't eat. She sat by Lily's bed long after the girl had fallen asleep. Outside, thunder murmured in the distance. Rain began to fall, softly at first, then heavier. Ava whispered into the dim room, "If you really can hear me, tell me what to do." The candle on the nightstand flickered. A gust of wind brushed through the curtains though the windows were shut. And then, so faint it could have been imagined, a voice. "Do what I couldn't. Let her love without fear." Ava's breath caught. The voice was her mother's. She rose and looked toward the window. There, faintly reflected in the rain-streaked glass, she thought she saw two figures, her mother and another woman with soft brown hair. Lily's mother. Both smiling. Then they faded, leaving only the candle's glow. The next morning, Ava made the call. Within hours, arrangements were made for Lily to visit her father at the hospital. The drive there was quiet. Lily clutching a small stuffed bear, Ava lost in thought. When they arrived, the man waiting in the bed was nothing like Ava expected. He was gaunt, his eyes sunken but kind. When Lily entered, he began to cry. "Lily," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Oh, my baby girl." The child hesitated, then climbed onto the chair beside him. "You look sick," she said softly. He smiled weakly. "I've been sick for a long time. But seeing you, I think I can get better." Ava stood by the door, watching in silence. The reunion was raw, imperfect, but real. Then, to her surprise, Lily turned and motioned to her. "Come here, Miss Ava." Ava stepped forward. "This is my new friend," Lily said proudly. "She saved me." Lily's father looked up at her, his eyes glassy with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. "You gave her back to me." Ava shook her head. "No. She gave me something back." The man nodded, understanding in his tired eyes. "Then maybe we were all meant to cross paths." For a brief, fragile moment, the room felt lighter, like forgiveness itself had entered. But as Ava turned to glance at Lily again, she saw something that made her still. Behind the girl, just for a second, stood the two women she'd seen reflected in the glass the night before. They weren't ghosts of pain anymore. They were light, soft, peaceful, smiling. Lily followed her gaze and smiled knowingly. "They say thank you." And then, as Ava blinked, the vision was gone. Outside, the rain stopped. The clouds parted, revealing sunlight breaking through like gold across the city. As they left the hospital, Lily slipped her hand into Ava's. "Do I have to stay with Daddy now?" Ava looked down at her. "He needs time to get better, but you'll see him again soon. Until then, you'll stay with me. Deal?" Lily's grin was pure joy. "Deal." Ava squeezed her hand gently. As they drove away, the world outside sparkled. Wet, clean, alive. For the first time, Ava didn't feel like she was running from her past. She was walking toward something new. A soft breeze swept through the city as winter slowly yielded to spring. The snow was gone now, replaced by pale sunlight and the scent of wet earth. Ava Morgan's mansion, once a symbol of loneliness, had begun to feel like a real home. Lily's laughter had become the pulse of the house, light, quick, and contagious. She filled the empty halls with drawings, little songs, and her favorite stuffed bear named Mr. Clouds. Even Marcus had started smiling more often. But peace, Ava had learned, was fragile. One morning, as she signed papers at her mahogany desk, Marcus entered with a hesitant knock. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "there's someone here to see you. A lawyer." Ava looked up, frowning. "A lawyer?" Marcus nodded. "She says she represents Miranda." The pen froze in Ava's hand. For a moment, the name felt like a ghost, something buried that had suddenly clawed its way back. "Send her in," Ava said finally. The woman who entered was not what Ava expected. She was young, composed, with dark hair tied neatly and a firm expression that spoke of precision and quiet fire. "Ms. Morgan?" she greeted politely, extending a card. "I'm Claire Daniels. I'm representing Miranda James in her legal affairs." Ava didn't shake her hand. "Miranda's in prison. There shouldn't be any affairs left to handle." Claire didn't flinch. "She's been transferred to a rehabilitation facility, and she's requested visitation rights for Lily." The air in the room seemed to tighten. "Absolutely not," Ava said flatly. "That woman almost killed her." "I understand your concern," Claire replied calmly. "But the law recognizes Miranda as Lily's legal guardian until her parental rights are terminated or transferred. You filed for temporary custody, correct?" Ava's silence was answer enough. Claire continued gently. "Then you know this isn't a decision you can make alone. A hearing has been scheduled for next week." Ava's jaw clenched. "And what exactly does Miranda want?" Claire hesitated, then said quietly, "Forgiveness, and a chance to say goodbye properly." The words stung, echoing something Ava had once said herself. She dismissed the lawyer politely but firmly. When the door closed, Ava sat back in her chair, staring at the papers before her, the adoption forms she had started filling out days ago. Her hand trembled slightly. Outside, the rain began again, soft against the glass. That evening, Lily found Ava sitting by the fire, lost in thought. "You're sad again," the girl said gently, climbing onto the couch beside her. Ava blinked, startled by the child's quiet intuition. "Why do you think that?" "Your eyes get quiet when you're sad." Ava smiled faintly. "You're too smart for your age, you know that?" Lily tilted her head. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart." Ava sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Someone from your past wants to see you." "Her?" Lily asked softly. Ava nodded. Lily didn't speak for a moment. Her gaze fell to her lap. "Mommy said this would happen." Ava frowned. "What do you mean?" "She said some goodbyes are the hardest because they mean healing." Ava's heart twisted. "Do you want to see her?" Ava asked quietly. Lily hesitated, then whispered, "If she says sorry, I'll listen." Ava reached over and took her hand. "You don't have to forgive her." Lily looked up, her brown eyes calm. "But if I don't, I'll never be free." The child's wisdom was disarming, ancient almost. The day of the hearing came faster than Ava expected. The courthouse smelled faintly of dust and rain. Lily clung to her hand, small and silent, her bear tucked under her arm. Miranda was brought in quietly. She looked different. Frail, subdued, her once fiery eyes replaced by a hollow, weary calm. The woman who had raged in Ava's living room was gone. This was someone who had been broken down and was trying to rebuild. When she saw Lily, her lips trembled. "Hi, sweetheart." Lily looked up at her but said nothing. The judge began the hearing, reviewing the documents and statements. Ava's lawyers argued fiercely for adoption, citing Miranda's past abuse. Claire, calm but firm, argued for limited visitation rights, saying Miranda had shown progress in rehabilitation and was cooperating with therapy. Through it all, Lily sat quietly, eyes distant, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then, when the judge asked if the child wanted to speak, Lily stood up. The room went silent. She walked to the center of the courtroom, holding Mr. Clouds tightly. Her voice was soft, but steady. "She hurt me," Lily said simply. "She made me scared. But I think she was scared too." Miranda began to cry silently. Lily turned toward Ava. "Miss Ava made me feel safe. She doesn't yell. She listens. She smiles, with her eyes now." A small, warm chuckle rippled through the courtroom, even from the judge. Then Lily looked back at Miranda. "I forgive you, but I want to stay with Miss Ava." The judge leaned forward. "Are you sure, Lily?" Lily nodded. "Yes, I think that's what Mommy wants." The gavel came down with a soft thud. temporary custody was extended indefinitely, while adoption. Procedures continued. Miranda would have the right to write letters. Nothing more. Ava exhaled slowly, a mix of relief and ache swirling in her chest. After the session, Miranda approached quietly, escorted by her lawyer. Her eyes were swollen, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for keeping her alive." Ava looked at her for a long moment. "Thank you for letting her go." Miranda nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Maybe now she'll be loved the way she deserves." Ava didn't respond, but when Miranda turned to leave, she saw Lily watching her. The child raised a small hand and waved once, softly, gently. Miranda smiled through her tears and mouthed, "I'm sorry." And just like that, she was gone. That night, back at the mansion, Lily fell asleep in Ava's arms, her breathing slow and peaceful. Ava sat by the window, staring out at the moonlight over the garden. The willow tree outside swayed faintly in the night breeze. And then she saw it again, 2 faint figures standing beneath its branches. Lily's mother. Her own mother. They didn't speak this time. They simply smiled. And then slowly, their forms dissolved into the night air, like light returning to the stars. The room felt different after that. Warmer. Quieter. Ava whispered into the stillness, "Thank you." Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring, "She says thank you too." Ava smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. Maybe the miracles were ending. Maybe the ghosts had found peace. But for Ava Morgan and Lily James, this was not an ending. It was the fragile, shining beginning of something new. 1 year later. The morning sun poured golden light through the tall windows of the courthouse. It was the kind of day that seemed too perfect to be real. Soft wind, clear sky, and the faint scent of lilac blooming early in spring. Ava Morgan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the small pearl pin on her blazer. She looked calm, composed, like always, but her eyes betrayed the tremor of emotion beneath the surface. Today was the day. Behind her, Lily twirled in a new white dress, her laughter bright as bells. "Do I look okay?" she asked, holding out her arms. Ava turned and smiled. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Lily giggled. "You look nervous." Ava laughed, shaking her head. "I'm not nervous." "Yes, you are," Lily teased. "Your hands keep doing that." She mimicked Ava's habit of rubbing her fingers together when anxious. Ava knelt down, meeting her at eye level. "Maybe I'm just excited." Lily tilted her head. "Because you're finally gonna be my mom?" Ava's breath caught. She nodded softly. "Yes. Because I finally get to call you my daughter." The words felt like sunlight breaking through clouds she hadn't even realized were still there. The courtroom that had once been filled with tension was different today. Brighter, softer. There were flowers by the windows. And even, the judge smiled when Ava and Lily entered hand in hand. Marcus sat behind them, straight-backed but beaming like a proud uncle. When the judge read the final declaration, "Effective immediately, Lily James shall henceforth be known as Lily Morgan," Ava felt her knees weaken. Lily turned to her, grinning. "So, do I call you Mom now?" Ava's eyes glistened. "Only if you want to." "I want to," Lily whispered. "Hi, Mom." It was such a small word, but for Ava it felt like salvation. She pulled the child into her arms, holding her as if anchoring both of them to something sacred. The room erupted in quiet applause, but Ava barely heard it. She could only feel the heartbeat against her chest, steady and alive. After the ceremony, they returned home. The mansion no longer felt hollow. It was full of music and warmth. Balloons floated near the stairs, and the staff, once reserved and distant, were smiling and laughing with Lily as she chased Mr. Clouds through the hall. Ava stepped outside for a moment, needing air. The garden had begun to bloom. Tulips, lavender, and a single white rose bush near the willow tree that hadn't been there before. She paused, staring at it. She didn't remember planting it. The petals swayed gently in the breeze, glinting with tiny drops of dew that shimmered like stars in daylight. And there, resting among the roots, lay something small and familiar, half buried in soil. A porcelain angel. It was cracked at the wings, faintly weathered, but unmistakably the same angel Lily had clutched in her hands that night in the snow. Ava knelt down, her heart catching in her throat. She brushed the dirt away gently. For a moment she thought she heard a whisper, soft and kind, like a memory carried on wind. "You kept your promise." Ava smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. "I did." When she turned, Lily was standing at the door, watching her. "What are you looking at, Mom?" Ava rose, holding the angel in her palm. "A reminder," she said softly, "that miracles don't always leave. Sometimes they just change form." Lily smiled, walking toward her. "Mommy says she's happy now." Ava blinked. "You can still hear her?" Lily shrugged, smiling mischievously. "Maybe. Maybe she's just part of the wind now." Ava laughed gently, pulling her into an embrace. "Then let's make sure she always has something beautiful to hear." That evening, as the sun melted into gold across the horizon, they stood together in the garden. Lily placed the porcelain angel on a small stone near the rose bush. "Can we name the rose?" Lily asked. Ava smiled. "What do you want to call it?" "Hope," Lily said simply. Ava nodded. "Then hope it is." The wind stirred again, rustling through the willow leaves. Somewhere above, a flock of birds took flight, rising toward the sunset. Lily slipped her hand into Ava's. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart? Are you happy?" Ava looked at her daughter, her heart swelling with a peace she had never known. "I am," she whispered. "For the first time, I really am." As they stood there, mother and daughter, survivor and savior, both reborn from the cold, the last light of day fell gently over them, warm and golden. And for a fleeting moment, Ava thought she saw two faint figures at the edge of the garden, smiling in the glow. Her mother. Lily's mother. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Because some love stories don't end. They simply find new beginnings.